Let's start with a little exercise, shall we? Close your eyes and think back to when you were 9 or 10 years old. Okay? Keep your eyes closed and let me ask you, what would you do to overcome a trauma or your worst fear? Remember, you are only 9 years old. Now, open your eyes and let me tell you my approach, what I did, and how I survived. But most important, let me tell you how I managed to help others along the way. How many traumas can we overcome before becoming suicidal? And what if these traumas are also different to one another, that we can't catch a breath, that it's even hard to find the time to reflect and learn from it, that another one comes along straight away, at times even more devastating than the previous one. After a traumatic encounter, I was only 9 years old, as you can imagine, I obviously didn't say a word at home, but my mom noticed there was something strange in my behavior. So, thinking to cheer me up, she took me to a toy store. And I can still remember, like it was yesterday, this narrow, long toy stores, which had a wall all dedicated to Barbies. The world of Barbie. Houses, cars, friends, sisters, swimming pool, even airplanes. And I immediately realized that I could recreate in my own room an imaginary city using these toys, avoiding the real one, so painful and dangerous. And so I did, metaverse before its time. And so I did. I grew up all alone in my room/box till the famous teen years when all sorts of physical and mental changes happen. After 2 years of therapy, and without my imaginary world anymore, both myself and my therapist agreed that it was time to let it go, and with zero social skills, I start again to experiment social interactions with just one piece of advice. You can choose how to look your history. We all know it's not easy to liberate ourselves from the past, but certainly we can learn from it. Years pass by, and life hasn't been kind, I'm afraid. Divorced parents, constantly moving from one place to another, abusive relationships. I experienced racism, gaslighting, and psychological aggressions in some of the workplaces I was in, the suicide of my young brother, and more recently, cancer and divorce. There were times when I wanted to end my own life, but it was an option for me. I couldn't let my mom losing her second son. So I kept repeating to myself, you and no one else can change your situation. And at that time, my typical questions were, how do I react? What shall I do? How can I help others experiencing similar traumas? And my answer was always one little step at a time. Using creative imaginations, so beneficial in my childhood, I started to work on winning over my suicidal thoughts and regaining control of my dream. I decided to use a CI, short for creative imaginations, in my work and in my personal life. But how, you may ask? When I started my academic life more than 20 years ago, I immersed myself in pedagogical studies, exploring the role of creative imaginations, defined by psychology, has the capacity to generate new ideas explained by the interaction of unconscious elements and active and conscious thoughts. And based on my findings, I realized, first, I was already using creative imagination in a very unconscious way since I was a child. Second, putting myself in others' shoes, as suggested by creative imaginations, I developed and strengthened my social skills, empathy and kindness. Third, looking at things in a different way and trying different approaches, I learned to listen, adapt, imagine, and interact better. There were times when I had to overcome a trauma. Instead of focusing on the events I was experiencing, I decided to look outside. And I thought, why not do something good while waiting for the storm to pass? And so I started to look at causes very dear to me. And I grabbed my bike with my brother Jim backpack, that's all I had. And I organized 2 bike tours, the first from London to Athens and the second from London to Copenhagen, for a cause extremely, extremely dear to me, the reunification of the Parthenon marble that we all know from a philological point of view they should be together. I had very little hope about their return to Athens, but still it was a small win, just simply achieving, completing this task and receiving the affection of the Greek people. Here you see me. When I arrived, I donated my bike as a symbolic gesture to the Parthenon Museum, and I was received also by Madame Angela Grecu, then Minister of Culture. Another time, I was in hospital, and I was feeling very, very down, very blue. And I started to think, if I had to write about one beautiful thing that happened into your life, what it would be? The answer came very simply. I started to write about my best friend and our friendship. And I created a short story written in a roman-à-clef style as an educational tool for parents and teachers to start early, guided conversations on important issues such as, for example, women and gender equality. So, my question for you is tonight, why we don't do all something good while waiting for the storm to pass? Creative imagination is a mechanism to react, survive, and thrive. It gives us the opportunity to step out of our box, no matter what it is, our childhood room, our office, or whatever box we build around us, and save our lives by the life we discover in our creative work. And we can do that when we swap routine with passion, intuition, and intrinsic motivations. More recently, due to COVID, I had to go back to live in Italy, and I was stuck there for nearly 2 years. And there I reached again to creative imagination for help. Knowing that so many friends, artists, were experiencing a similar discomfort, I decided, together with my best friend, to create an art and poetry open-air museum, giving them and myself the opportunity to be active and creative while helping others and the environment. Everything started with the top left pictures that you see there. We discovered this votive shrine empty and neglected. And then we went for a search in the city, and we realized that this historical center was plenty in similar conditions. So we decided to restore one by one, and here you see a before and after example, putting next to the artwork a poem. A poem because we wanted to give people passing by the opportunity not only to admire beauty and artworks from different artists, but also to reflect on the words of the poems. Let me show you a short video that we created at the end of this project that we call it 20 Saints for the city of Palermo.
Saintly eyes cast towards heaven, crown askewed and beard tangled, your faithful dog not here to save you, only the benediction of water, the water that saves me too. Once beheaded genius, your pain evident with that fat, coiled serpent clutched close to your breast, biting deep, another Laocoon, venom coursing in your now marbled blood, all in the full view of a sympathetic but uninterested public. The arrival of COVID in early 2020, Italy, like much of the world, reacted by commencing a series of stringent social measures to prevent the worsening and spread of the virus. Globally, millions died. Lives irrevocably changed, and the world seemed to come to an uneasy halt. What we once took for granted before now became a rare and precious commodity. It was from this period that Dr. Luca Lo Sicco came upon the idea of 20 saints for the city. While walking in the historic center of Palermo, Dr. Lo Sicco was struck by the sight of an empty wall shrine that populate many of the streets in the old town.
I saw this shrine before me, but it was empty. It's not like I hadn't noticed before. I had seen it many times as I walked the area frequently. What was different this time was that it spoke like a symbol does, and it was relevant to the situation now. It was like a metaphor of our spirit for me. Our hope needed to be restored in this pandemic.
Thus the idea was born, 20 Saints for the City, a cultural initiative spearheaded by the charitable non-profit organization Open Air Museum of Palermo. The purpose of this project is to help the promotion and displaying of contemporary iconography, coupled with the restoration and revitalization of the many abandoned votive shrines. Also, the project hoped to help artists during the hardships of lockdown by offering a kind of artistic continuity. It also wanted to help in the uncertain aftermath of the pandemic by offering a platform and an exhibition for the artist's work.
Selecting the theme of saints made sense to me, not only from the physical context where they would be displayed, but also to celebrate people who had also endured hardships and difficult life trials. I felt it was a way of reviving a symbolic hope in the world. We rediscovered older traditional ways of being.
Iconography and the form of a simple icon became like a symbolic tool for the artist, their contribution to rebuilding the world around them. It is hoped that the art and message of these icons endure, but also inspire a kind of pattern for the era to come.
Next time, your brother, your sister, your friend, why not your students, tells you a new story, stop what you're doing and listen. Anything else can wait, trust me. They are learning and working on their creative imagination as a mechanism to learn and thrive. It will help them now as well as in the future. and perhaps they will stay with us a little bit longer. Thank you.